Hitting a plateau just means that you're practicing, but you're not seeing any improvement. So if that's a problem for you, watch this video. I'm going to tell you 4 things you can do to break through. Before we talk about what can go wrong with improvement and stall it out, we need to understand what causes it in the first place. So how do we get better on the guitar? And you say, well, we practice. Yes. And generally, what does that mean? It means that we repeat. We play something over and over and over, and gradually it gets better, right? Well, not exactly, because as you repeat, if all you were doing is repeating it, you'd keep making the same mistake over and over. You could do it 1,000 times and still play it with the same mistake, unless you also have what we'd call a self-correction mechanism. In other words, something that is allowing you the feedback to say, oh, that was a mistake. Let's not do that again. Let's make it better. And what is the feedback mechanism? Well, it's your ear. It's listening. So the first thing I want to say is if you're not improving, you're probably not listening carefully enough, and you're not listening to the right stuff. You see, there's a bit of a built-in problem with listening. And the problem is that at the beginning or intermediate level, which is where we need the most self-correction, as you're playing, you can't really listen. Why not? Well, because you're playing. If all your attention is on what you're doing, it's not available to really listen. You'll only become good at listening as you play, and you can really focus on the listening after you've played so much and you're so good at it that you don't have to think about it. It's easy and automatic. Well, now you can listen. But early in the process, when we need listening the most, that's when it's the hardest to do. And if you take listening out of the process, you're just doing the repetition without the self-correction, you're not going to get any better. Listen more carefully and more closely to everything you're playing. Dial it in to a deeper level. Look at the subtleties and the nuance. Pay attention to how it feels. Pay attention to how it sounds. When I do master classes, sometimes I'll bring up a player and plug in and we'll play some stuff and he'll play something in front of everybody. And I'll zero in on a couple of aspects of technique that they're doing that could be better. And generally within a minute or 2 minutes of putting their attention on the right things, they'll be able to actually make significant improvement to the point that within a minute or 2, everybody in the room can hear a significant improvement. And this can be something that they have had in their technique for years. You know, they're practicing, but never really improving. And the reason is because they're not directing their attention to where it needs to be, because they don't have the experience to know what the flaws are that they're looking for, and they're so busy caught up in playing that they're not really listening in the first place. So the first step is to realize it's all about listening. Start putting more attention there. And that brings up the next thing, which is getting a coach. You know, professional athletes that make millions of dollars a year, they're the best at what they do, baseball, basketball, football players, they have coaches. Why do they have a coach? Don't they know what they're doing? I mean, they're the best in the world, supposedly, and yet they're listening to the coach. Is the coach that much of a better player than they are? No, they're the best because they're on the field, right? So what is it that the coach has that they don't have? Well, he has a breadth of experience, for one thing, that spans a longer period of time, and he has something even more important than that. He has an outside perspective. You see, as the player is doing their thing, they can't watch themselves do it. The coach can provide this additional feedback mechanism and reflect back to them what they did that might have affected negatively, you know, what it is that they're trying to accomplish. And between their internal experience and the feedback of an experienced eye from the outside, they can pull all that together and do even better. So on guitar, it amazes me, but people will drop thousands of dollars on guitars and amps and extra guitars, but they won't invest in a good coach to learn how to actually play it well and make it sound good. It makes no sense. So the coach can step in and sort of become that self-correction mechanism, that weak link, because you can't listen as closely as you'd like, or you're not listening to the right things. The coach will know what the right things to listen to, what they are. Coach can step in and help guide your attention to those things and sort of be the feedback mechanism for you and get you on the right track. So I want to encourage you to find a coach. Now, I do this, so I mean, if you want, check out my Patreon page. I think it's tier 8 that I offer an hour a month of one-on-one lesson time, but I'm kind of expensive. So, you know, maybe it's not me, maybe it's somebody else, but I want to encourage you to find somebody who has more experience than you, who has, you know, a qualified eye and ear for these kinds of issues that can help give you the feedback and direct your attention. That's going to get you out of your slumps probably more than anything else. I should also mention, though, on Patreon, even for people that don't want to do one-on-one lesson time, I do have, you know, at the $5 level, you can watch videos where I have done reviews critiquing and finding the flaws and pointing out what they are and how to fix them. So even there, you'll be able to look at that stuff and then apply that stuff probably to yourself. That might help guide your attention, and that's, you know, almost nothing. And I also have an intermediate level where you can submit your own performances for that kind of specific critique and feedback. You know, the guitar really isn't a mystery. A lot of people think of it, you know, like that. But the bottom line is that if you put the right finger in the right place at the right time, everything will sound great. The guitar will play itself. There won't be any technique problems. The next big reason that players plateau is because they don't challenge themselves with higher level material. They get into a rut and they start playing the same stuff, and they just sort of keep doing the same thing over and over. And if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you're going to get the same results, right? What's that good old definition of Einstein's of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting to get different results. Well, it doesn't really work that way. If you want different results, you got to do something different. You do want to spend some of your time cementing your techniques, which would be reviewing things you already know, you know, playing songs you like, that kind of stuff, okay? But at the same time, you also should spend a significant amount of your time practicing actually challenging yourself to learn new things, to learn higher level things. So let's suppose, you know, you play some songs and then you noodle on some blues licks, and that's your practice typically. Well, maybe your blues licks are, you know, pretty simple stuff and they're things that you've played before. How about learning a new Stevie Ray Vaughan song, or Joe Bonamassa, or Kenny Wayne Shepherd, or one of these players that has sort of elevated the style to something that's a bit more of a challenge? Okay, you cut your teeth on that and your technique will rise. Seek some higher level stuff that is inspiring to you, that you want to start to learn. And, you know, maybe your technique's not quite capable of really pulling it off entirely, but you can probably find bits of things that they have done that you can do. So start with the easy bits, learn that stuff, and then progress on to harder ones. But keep challenging yourself to higher level material and keep making your guitar world bigger. And now let's look at the last thing that causes players to get stuck and plateau. They have a perspective that as they're looking at their songs, they're thinking about the notes they're playing, okay? And that's where all the attention is. And you say, well, you know, isn't that where my attention's supposed to be? Well, no, not really. Because you see, everything you play with 4 fingers and a pick. So if you have control over these 4 fingers and the pick, then you can play anything. You can play any sequence of notes. The sequence of notes is just a specific arrangement that, sure, you'll get better at playing in that sequence if you practice through that sequence a number of times, but that's not even what you really want. What you really want is control over this and this. You get that, and then you can play any song in any sequence at any speed, right? So you need to understand what the point of practice really is. Yeah, you're trying to learn a song, but it's not really about learning the song. Your attention should be on your finger motions, on your hands, do they feel comfortable in those motions? Where is it sticky? Where is there extra tension? Get your mind off of the pattern on the fretboard or the pattern of notes that you're trying to play, and get your mind onto what your fingers are doing and how they're feeling. In other words, it's not playing this note or that note, it's about the fundamental of the finger mechanics of what it takes to hold this note and move to that note, to hold the stretch, to move in all of these different ways, to relax the fingers you're not using, so that you don't have excess tension. These are the elements of the fundamentals, and that brings me back around to the coaching again, because the coach supposedly would, if he's good or she's good, will know this kind of stuff and will bring your attention back to those fundamentals. And when you're doing that, you're practicing the stuff that's going to enable you to play anything, and that means you're not going to be stuck at a plateau. So there you have it, 4 things you can do to break through any plateau or slump that you're in. Number 1, focus on listening more. That's your means of self-correction. Number 2, get a good coach. Number 3, challenge yourself. Learn some new material, advance, break some new ground. And number 4, look at the fundamentals. Look at your finger motions more than the specific notes. Or let's say after you get the specific notes down, don't think you're done, then kind of come back and focus on those fundamentals. You do all that and you're going to break through any plateau. Be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell. I'll see you in the next video.